The family heir looked every bit the part in his black suit and gold-rimmed glasses, listening with a cool, detached air as his subordinate gave a report. He didn't know that under his desk, a completely naked man was hidden. The man's face was flushed, his lip was split, and he silently mouthed the words, "Brother, can I stop now? Thomas, from now on, James is your older brother." I watched the gloomy young man before me with a playful smirk, a thrill running through my entire body. It was finally happening. Ignoring my adoptive parents' cautious words, I brazenly looked him up and down. James. Pleasure. James. He was the real heir to the Booth family fortune. For the first 18 years of his life, he'd been living in my place on the wrong side of the tracks, while I had enjoyed the life that should have been his. But I didn't feel the slightest bit of guilt, because this was all just a book, a trashy romance novel about a toxic top and a doormat bottom. And James? He was the doormat. As for me, I was just a disposable side character, destined to be crushed by the toxic top's rage. "Thomas, is that any way to greet your brother?" my adoptive mother said, displeased. "What did I tell you before?" Ever since they found out about James, my adoptive mother had stopped calling me by my nickname and started using my full name, Thomas. "I'm just so happy, brother," I said, a dimple appearing as I pursed my lips into a smile. "I'm just so happy to finally meet you." Only then did James finally deign to look at me, his own smile not reaching his eyes. "Hello. What a beautiful face." And his voice was just as nice. I licked my lips. "I hope we can get along." My attitude must have been too strange, because even my adoptive mother sensed something was off. "All right, as long as you can get along. James, let me show you to your room?" "Okay." Neither of them glanced at me again as they left. "Young master, the missus is really something else," the old butler grumbled, clearly unhappy. How can a son she raised for 18 years mean less to her than someone she's known for just a month? Listening to the butler's complaints, I just smiled. "Don't say that, Alfred. I really like my new brother." The butler sighed. "Well, young master, if you're ever unhappy about anything, you can always tell me." I gave a non-committal nod and went back to my room. If I was cannon fodder, then the butler was the cannon fodder's cannon fodder. Since James's return, everyone in the house, except for dear Alfred, had been wary of me. But I truly did like James. "System, I'm gonna make James mine." "Host, what kind of crazy talk is that?" The system's AI voice nearly cracked. "Your mission is to save the poor boy, not seduce him." I pictured James's face and let out a soft laugh. "Instead of letting that scumbag wreck him, why not let him be with me? I promise I'll love him properly. If I save him myself, won't that still complete the mission?" "That's not what we agreed on," the system said flatly. "You're supposed to save the protagonist so he can have a sweet, happy ending with the male lead." Cut it off, annoyed. "Sweet and happy? That scumbag deserves to be erased from existence. Bottom line, James is going to be mine." The system went silent. I pressed on. "My mission is just to save James, right? To stop him from stabbing the male lead and then killing himself. All I have to do is avoid that ending." "That's not what we agreed on. For 3 years you've been so cooperative, you—" "Well, I've had a change of heart," I said, opening my phone. My private photo album was filled with pictures of James. Why should a piece of trash like coal get someone as amazing and beautiful as James? My name is Thomas. 3 years ago, after dying in a car crash, I was brought into the world of this book by a system. It's a cliché, switched at birth BL novel with a terrible ending. The male lead, Cole, is a total scumbag who coerces and manipulates the real heir, James, leading to a story full of emotional and physical abuse. Just when it should have been a happy ending, the author lost their mind and had James suddenly stab Cole to death. My mission is to prevent James from having his villain arc. And stopping that should be simple, right? Just keep him far away from Cole. "Alfred, where did my brother go?" I was so worked up last night that I didn't fall asleep until 4 in the morning. By the time I woke up, it was already 2 in the afternoon. "Who knows?" the butler said, pulling me aside conspiratorially and whispering, "I hear he's always hanging out in shady places." Young master, you must not let him lead you astray. Shady places. He meant the bar. After all, James had been working part-time at a bar all summer. Even though James was the true heir of the Booth family, he didn't have much affection for them. To confirm his identity, my adoptive parents had done some pretty nasty things. I know, Alfred. I won't be home for dinner tonight. Without waiting for his reply, I rushed back to my room. Host, are you going to the bar? The system asked anxiously. You don't need to stop Cole yet. He hasn't hurt James. I snorted. Hasn't he? He's about to pour a drink on him and try to force himself on him. You call that not hurting him? Look, don't try to change my mind. You'd better behave, or I'll block you. For the past 3 years, besides secretly watching James, I'd been whipping this system into shape. It was just a string of code after all. With enough skill, I could make it work for me. As expected, the system went silent after my threat. Now, what to wear? I pondered, digging out an outfit I'd bought a year ago. It was a breezy pink shirt with a cutout pattern on the back that shimmered under the lights. Slutty. Perfectly slutty. On a normal guy, this shirt would probably be an eyesore. But I knew my face could pull it off. By the time I'd styled myself and arrived at James's bar, it was already 7 in the evening. I spotted him right away, carrying a tray of drinks. That waist, those long legs, absolutely stunning. Thomas, what brings you to our bar? Since James's identity hadn't been made public yet, to the outside world, I was still the Booth family heir. The official announcement was still 2 weeks away. In those 2 weeks, the original me was supposed to relentlessly bully James, pushing him to his breaking point, only to be brutally humiliated by Cole, who wanted to get on James's good side after his identity was revealed. But this time, I wasn't going to give Cole the chance. The Booth family fortune is mine, and the beauty is mine too, or the other way around. The guy who called me Thomas was, coincidentally, Cole's lackey. And even more coincidentally, he knew about the whole switched at birth situation with me and James. Seeing me here, he naturally assumed I was here to cause trouble for James. He was probably hoping Cole would show up and play hero. Cole was such a piece of trash. He was already planning to force himself on James' back when he thought James was just some poor student. It was only after finding out James was the Booth family heir that he switched to a softer approach. A scumbag like that didn't deserve a partner. Mike, what are you doing here? Spying for Cole? Thomas, I'm warning you, don't do anything stupid, Mike said, giving me a warning look. Cole is not someone you want to mess with. He said that as if I was a pushover. Did they really think that after all these years as the Booth family heir, I had nothing to show for it? I'm not an idiot. I'm the one who should be warning you guys not to do anything stupid. I sneered. James is my brother. If you dare lay a hand on him, I won't let you off easy. Mike looked like he'd swallowed a bug and was speechless for a long moment. But then his gaze shifted, and something was off. I turned my head and saw James. Ugh, he saw me posturing. Brother, are you tired? Why don't you let me help you? James gave me a cold look, then turned his gaze to Mike. Tell Cole to give it up. I'm not into men. And you, he added, what are you doing here? Was he asking me? The bar's lighting made James's features look even more stunning. A face like that, no wonder Cole was obsessed with forcing him. But the gloominess in James's eyes dulled his entire expression. I wanted to see my brother, I said, looking up at him innocently. I was so happy to see you last night that I forgot to greet you properly. James clearly didn't believe me, but he couldn't be bothered to argue. He turned to walk away, but he didn't get far. James, is that how you treat a customer? That voice. I whipped my head around. It was Cole. For the past 3 years, I had tried my best to avoid him, afraid I wouldn't be able to stop myself from bashing his head in. Cole, I've told you before, stop wasting your time on me. I'm not into men. Cole wasn't angry at all. Instead, he said with brazen confidence, it doesn't matter if you're not into other men. You just have to be into me. Ugh, the nerve. Instinctively, I stepped in front of Cole. Brother, maybe we should just go home. James glanced down at me and was about to say something when Cole let out a cold laugh. Thomas, you're dressed like that to seduce me? Cole said mockingly. You're not even worth one of James's fingers. I was stunned. Dude, we've only met a handful of times in 3 years. Where do you get this confidence? I dressed like this to seduce James, but the commotion had drawn the attention of people around us. Someone even whistled at me. Even though James was handsome, he was too cold. Dressed like this, I looked like I was out cruising for guys. Damn it, I wanted to curse someone out. Thomas, I didn't know you had this side to you, Cole said, but his eyes were fixed on James. If you drink this, I'll consider spending the night with you. Spend the night with my ass. I told you, a scumbag like him doesn't deserve anyone. How about a different bet? I said, grabbing a bottle of liquor from the table and looking at Cole defiantly. You stay away from my brother. Cole's expression changed. Then he suddenly chuckled. Fine, drink up. I could pretty much guess what Cole was thinking. He just assumed I was trying to seduce him to provoke James. After all, the original Thomas really had done that. James saw me actually open the bottle and looked at me, seeming like he wanted to say something, but in the end, he said nothing. It's okay, brother, I said, winking at him. I already talked to your manager. You can leave whenever you want today. Without waiting for James's response, I put the bottle to my lips and started chugging. Honestly, I can't hold my liquor that well. I was betting on the fact that James couldn't just leave me here. After all, I was his brother, at least in name. Nice, Cole said, looking pleased. He reached out, about to pull me over. I wasn't about to let that happen. With a slight sway, I stumbled right into James. Brother, I'm so dizzy, I mumbled, grabbing the collar of his shirt and looking up at him weakly. Take me away from here, okay? I could clearly feel James's body tense up. But he didn't push me away, which meant my gamble was half successful. James, do you know what you're doing? Cole's voice was cold. You should know what kind of person Thomas is, right? What kind of person am I? I'm a good person who loves his brother. Brother, Cole is a bad guy. Let's just ignore him, okay? My voice was a bit slurred, but Cole definitely heard me. Cole, I don't know what you're up to. James's voice was dark and cold, but don't interrupt my work. Our reactions probably weren't what Cole had expected, because this arrogant prick, who thought he was invincible, finally got angry. But I was the one who paid the price. Cole threw a glass of liquor right at me. I shivered, then gave James a smile. Brother, now you have to take me with you. Cole's drink still went flying, it just hit me instead. You'll both regret this. After spitting out that vague threat, Cole stormed off with Mike in a huff. Watching them leave, I let out a sigh of relief. According to the original plot, James was supposed to be humiliated by Cole tonight, both overtly and subtly, before Cole would make a show of generosity and force James to sleep with him. Now that I had pissed Cole off and he'd left, that major plot point was gone. I relaxed, letting go of James and slumping back into the booth, muttering dizzily, I'm just gonna sleep for a bit. You're going to sleep here? James sounded angry. Are you that desperate for a man? Who were you trying to pick up, dressed like that? Who was I trying to pick up? You, of course. Thomas, what are you saying? Shit. I said the quiet part out loud. I opened my eyes and looked at James innocently. Brother, what's wrong? James's expression was dark. He swept a hand through his hair, pushing his bangs off his forehead and revealing his entire handsome face. Without his bangs, James looked much more intense. He pulled me up forcefully, and I stumbled out the door after him. Brother, where are we going? James stopped, his tone flat. To a hotel. Weren't you trying to seduce me? I was so shocked the alcohol practically evaporated from my system. Did it work that easily? Cole drugged me, James's expression hardened. Thomas, you walked right into this. I didn't understand what James meant. After all, he kept telling Cole he wasn't into men. My mind was still spinning even as he laid me down on the bed. How could such a delicate face belong to a body with such solid muscles? Brother, what are you doing? I must have been drunk out of my mind, because my lust got the better of me and I reached out to touch James's abs. They felt really good. If you put him and Cole side by side, it would be hard to tell who was who. Thomas, are you Mr. Woods? Hearing that name, any remaining haze of drunkenness vanished. I looked at James in shock, quickly pulling my hand back and trying to get up. Haha, what, Mr. Woods? Brother, it's getting late. I should go home. But I couldn't move. With James pinning me down from this angle, I couldn't see his expression. You paid for my high school tuition and living expenses for 3 years, didn't you, Mr. Woods? James's voice was cold, like he was about to gut me. Thomas, you stole my identity, and now you're deliberately humiliating me with money? Do you think this is fun? That snapped me completely sober. I grabbed James's hand. That's not it. How could I have known who you were 3 years ago? Brother, I didn't want to tell you this so soon, but I have to now. 3 years ago, it was love at first sight for me. My words made James freeze. He looked at me silently, not saying a word. But he must have believed me because I wasn't lying. I really did fall for his face. 3 years ago, when I first transmigrated into this world, my first instinct was to save the tragic James. But the system said our first meeting couldn't happen for another 3 years. I had no choice but to donate to him anonymously. James must have done a thorough background check on me this past month. Just a useless fake heir. How could he have found out I was the anonymous donor? The identity I created for myself was a 30-year-old man. Brother, are you uncomfortable? I tried to relax my body, hoping to shift his attention. I can help you. James's breathing hitched. As the romantic lead in a BL novel, how could James really have no reaction to men? But what I didn't expect was this. James was going to be the top. No wonder he was so unwilling to give in to Cole. He was a top too. So what was I supposed to do? I dug this grave, and now I had to lie in it, even if it made me cry. I regretted it. I was into James, yes, but I never planned on being the one on the bottom. I didn't want James to be Cole's wife because I wanted James to be my wife. Thomas, why aren't you talking? Why would I talk? Am I supposed to give a post-sex review? It didn't hurt that much in the end, but it was still incredibly uncomfortable. So uncomfortable that I wished I could just fast forward the plot and go back to that bar. In the original story, James didn't lose his virginity this early. Now, thanks to my meddling, I'm sure the system had something to do with this. System, why couldn't I move last night? I was just drunk, not paralyzed. The system's voice sounded weak and listless. Congratulations, host, on achieving your desire and finally getting the guy. I will be logging off for now. Was the system doing this on purpose? But there was nothing I could do. We were always trying to one-up each other. Thomas, talk. I almost forgot about James while I was arguing with the system. Brother, I'm just a little sore. I mumbled, burying myself under the covers. Let's just call this an accident. We're brothers. I'll pretend it never happened. James acted like he didn't hear me and ripped the covers off. Oh really? You had the guts to seduce me yesterday, but now you won't own up to it? Damn it, he knew. I was just hot yesterday. I felt like this position was a bad idea. I grabbed James's hand and tried to sit up. This time, he didn't resist. He didn't pull his hand back either. You also said it was love at first sight. I was young then. I didn't know what I was feeling. Last night, I thought I was going to be the one on top, so I was saying whatever came to mind. It's fine. The gloom on James's face had lessened slightly. Let's go home, little brother. With that, he got up. I was a bit baffled. What did he mean by that? Still, James looked good. His naked body was like a work of art, except for the few scratch marks I'd left on his back, which added a certain erotic touch. My gaze must have been too intense, because James turned his head and said calmly, "Want a touch?" No. I refused immediately. I might have the desire, but I definitely didn't have the nerve. Brother, I hesitated, but asked anyway, what would have happened if Cole had taken you away yesterday? James's expression turned cold. Nothing. I would have crippled him. Couldn't help but gasp. Why did I ever think James was some poor, helpless thing? With a body like that, he could definitely go toe-to-toe with Cole. There was no way he was helpless. Lust is a dangerous thing. I brought this on myself. When my adoptive mother saw James and me returning together, she was horrified. She tried to pull James behind her, but probably couldn't move him, so she just blocked my path instead. Thomas, did you bully James? He's your brother. Me bully him? It was more like he bullied me all night. Mom, Thomas is your son too. James's voice was devoid of emotion. You don't need to speak to him in that tone. My adoptive mother seemed stunned that James would defend me. She stammered, his parents took you away, causing us to be separated for 18 years. I just feel so bad for you. James actually laughed at that. But we've only known each other for a month. You've raised Thomas for 18 years. My adoptive mother's expression crumbled. She shot me a glare and said reluctantly, Thomas, you too must be hungry. Take your brother to eat. I actually understood my adoptive parents' attitude. Their marriage was arranged, there were no feelings involved. Having a child was just fulfilling a duty. I was raised by the butler. They just provided the money and saw me maybe 5 times a year, if that. In a family like this, the only requirement for a child is to inherit the business. Who that child is doesn't really matter. Compared to the fake son they raised for 18 years, the real son, connected by blood, was far more important. Besides, although James and I both got into universities in our state, I had barely scraped by into a decent one, while James, despite his circumstances, had gotten into a top-tier school. It was obvious who the Booth family would choose. My adoptive mother didn't really know how to be a mother either. Spending a little time with James every day these past few days had already made her impatient. It was because of this hands-off attitude that even when James was later imprisoned by Cole, my adoptive parents had no idea. Brother, let me take you to get something to eat. My mind was racing, but on the surface, I was all smiles. I'm starving. I decided I still had to seduce James, because I had a dream. In the dream, I was the one being held captive. The dream versions of James and Cole were terrifying. I suspected the system was messing with me, but it denied everything. So, for both our sakes, I had to keep seducing James. Host, hiding in James's bed like this isn't very appropriate, is it? Shut up, I hissed, my face burning. School starts in a few days, and we're not even at the same university. It'll be even harder to seduce him then. The system fell silent. Probably thought I was shameless. Honestly, I didn't really want to do this, but I couldn't stand the thought of James focusing all his attention on Cole. I'd ruined their encounter once, but what about the second time or the third? James had already quit his job at that bar, which meant I was on the right track. I couldn't just go around playing Demolition Man every time, right? Holding my breath, I began to wait patiently for James to arrive. And then I fell asleep. Thomas, what are you doing in here? An icy sensation shot through my lower abdomen, shocking me awake. My eyes flew open to see a fully dressed James standing by the bed. In his hand was a glass full of ice cubes. The glass was pressed against my skin, raising goosebumps all over me. Brother, I was scared. I wanted to sleep with you. Even the heavens were on my side. A clap of thunder boomed outside. James's gaze darkened. Dressed like this? He flicked a finger, lifting the corner of my thin pajama top. The spot where the glass had touched was now damp, the fabric clinging to my skin. I was only wearing a special pair of shorts. From James's angle, it was a very tempting, now you see it, now you don't view. Took me 3 days to pick these out. Brother, I'm really scared. I gently hooked my foot around James's waist, feeling his abs tighten in response. I want to sleep with you. James gripped my ankle, his voice deep. Thomas, do you know what you're doing? Didn't you say you wanted to be brothers? I changed my mind, I said, my gaze burning as I looked at him. Brother, can you stay away from Cole? I hate him. Tomorrow was the day the Booth family would officially acknowledge James. This was a critical turning point. Cole had actually run into James a few times recently, but he hadn't done anything crazy. I was worried they might still be drawn to each other. James's thumb rubbed my ankle. Thomas, are you afraid they'll kick you out of the family? After all, besides your face, you don't have many other good qualities. Then, brother, I pressed my other foot against his abs. Do you like my face? As it turned out, James liked it very much. He even got my face dirty. Listening to James's ragged breaths, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. I think I'll win James over faster than Cole ever could, because I'm willing to be on the bottom for him. Cole would never do that. I was going to win. I don't know what James said to our adoptive parents, But the next day, there was no big, ostentatious ceremony to welcome him back. It was just a small family dinner to announce his identity. The plot, which should have been full of drama, passed by uneventfully. I was a little stunned by this. System, is there something wrong with this world? In response to my question, the system replied sarcastically, you stole the main love interest. The whole point of that banquet was for you to have a meltdown and push the two leads together. Now that you're all brother this and brother that plot point is no longer necessary. That made sense. I believed it. And so, my relationship with James remained in a delicate balance. It seemed James had accepted me as his friend with benefits. That was fine. As long as Cole stayed away, that was all that mattered. However, this didn't prevent the tragic ending, because Cole still hadn't given up on James. Cole and James naturally ended up at the same university. As for me, the cannon fodder, I could only watch from the neighboring school with greedy eyes. This was the critical period. As the true heir of the Booth family, James started working at the family company during his freshman year. And Cole, conveniently, was a business partner. At school, Cole was the student council president, and James was the head of the academic department. At the company, James was an assistant, and Cole was the client. The power of the plot is unavoidable, isn't it? It's even been moved up. To get in their way, I shamelessly insisted on shadowing James to learn the ropes. Whenever I didn't have class, I followed James to the company. Naturally, I saw a lot of Cole. Seeing me soured Cole's mood, and of course, my mood wasn't much better. Thomas, with your status, isn't it a bit inappropriate for you to be in the Booth family's company? Cole sneered. Are you just taking advantage of James being too nice? Who are you to call him James so familiarly? Cole, I didn't realize you were the type to go back on your word. I sneered back. Didn't we bet a bottle of liquor on you staying away from my brother? Cole raised an eyebrow. You think James is only worth one bottle of liquor? Thomas, you really underestimate him. The guy was even trying to drive a wedge between us. Just as I was about to retort, James placed a hand on my shoulder. Mr. Cole, Thomas is my little brother. Of course, he's allowed in the company. James was actually defending me? I looked at him, moved, wanting to offer myself to him on the spot. Cole stared at James in disbelief. You're actually taking his side? What's wrong with that? I provoked him. My brother and I are family. Cole snorted. Childish. With that, he walked away. I watched him go, a little baffled. Why did I feel like that scumbag was actually treating James like a person now? According to the original plot, Cole treated James like property. Brother, I don't think he's good enough for you. I pouted, unhappy. Cole is not a good person. James looked down at me, his gaze heavy. Oh? Then who do you think is good enough for me, Thomas? Me, of course. But I figured James probably looked down on me too. So I just gave an awkward laugh. Whoever brother likes is good enough for brother. As long as it wasn't Cole, I didn't care who James liked. Thomas, you're terrible at hiding things, James said, stroking my cheek with a slight smile. Mr. Woods, the return address on that first letter you sent was your own home, wasn't it? I froze in shock. How was that possible? I wouldn't have made such a stupid mistake. It must have been the system's doing again. I ground my teeth. That system was always paying me lip service while doing its own thing. But what did it matter? Could only pull off petty tricks. I was the one in control now. I couldn't believe James knew it was me from the very beginning. The system probably wanted James to hate me after finding out. But the system didn't count on me offering myself up. System, checkmate. Thanks to my constant interference, Cole's interest in James slowly waned. This continued until our senior year. And similarly, my own interest in James had also started to fade. Since Cole was no longer a threat to James, it was time for me to make a graceful exit. Host detection complete. The male lead's possessiveness towards the protagonist is almost gone. The system's voice sounded dejected. But this is a BL novel, so you'll have to take his place. The system's sudden announcement left me stunned. What did that mean? Wasn't the deal that I could leave once I saved James? I suspect the system is screwing me over. Host, I was against you doing this from the beginning, the system sounded aggrieved. James and Cole have become business rivals. They're both driven to succeed and have reached a strange sort of equilibrium. I was a bit dazed. I never expected things to turn out this way. In the original plot, James only reluctantly started interning at the company after graduation. During that time, the original me was constantly causing trouble. Since James wasn't interested in the business to begin with, he was never a match for Cole. This time, James proactively joined the company his freshman year and had now even become a general manager, able to compete with Cole on equal footing. If Cole and James were still involved, it would be a story about a power couple now. Cole had a thing for the helpless, pitiful James, but not for the cool, domineering CEO James. So, the way to save James from his tragic fate was to make him a career man. If I had known that earlier, why did I have to offer myself up? The one I liked was the helpless, pitiful James. Who was this cool, domineering, badass CEO James who stood at 6'1", towering over me? The system must have detected my thoughts, because its voice suddenly sounded cheerful. Host, you got everything you wanted. Are you happy? Happy my ass. Give me back my sweet, beautiful James. Who is this guy who's so much taller than me? Thomas, what are you thinking about? James grabbed my hand and pulled me onto his lap. I'm going abroad for a few days. You be good and stay at school. Don't come to the company. Abroad? An idea sparked in my mind, but I kept my face neutral. Brother, are you afraid I'll embarrass you at the company? I'm afraid Cole will bully you, James said, taking off his gold-rimmed glasses. But if he really does anything to you, tell me, and I'll beat him up for you. He could say Cole so naturally now. I nodded obediently and leaned in for a kiss, mumbling against his lips, whatever you say, brother. Over the past 4 years, our bodies had become perfectly attuned to each other, but our relationship remained ambiguous. I think it's time for me to slowly detach myself from this. As for what the system said, who cares? James was going to be on a business trip for a month. That was more than enough time for me to move to a new city and start a new life. My excuse was solid. As the fake heir, it wasn't right for me to be hanging around the main headquarters. I only mentioned it once, and my adoptive parents immediately arranged for me to be transferred to a branch office in another city. Actually, they had long been aware of my relationship with James. They weren't blind, after all. But just like in the original story, where they could turn a blind eye to Cole forcing himself on James, they were also indifferent to my incestuous relationship with James, as long as it didn't affect the company. In that respect, they weren't hypocrites. I had expected a storm to hit when James returned to the country. But to my surprise, I had been at the branch office for half a year, and James hadn't contacted me once. It seemed he had accepted the end of our relationship. That was good. I let out a sigh of relief. James was no longer being preyed upon by Cole. He wouldn't turn into a gloomy psycho, and I could finally start enjoying my own life. The next time I saw James was at the branch office's annual party. He was there as the representative from headquarters, having traveled all this way just for the event. It had been 8 months since James and I had last seen each other. His face was still as dazzling as ever. I took one look and quickly lowered my head. But in this kind of setting, as James's brother, it was impossible for me to hide. Thomas, long time no see. James poured me a glass of wine. After watching me drink it, he continued, "Are you done playing around? If you are, then it's time to be brother's good little boy again. You managed to pretend for 3 years, you can pretend for a lifetime, can't you?" James's eyes were just as gloomy as they were the first time I saw him. "Brother, Shoo." James tapped my lips. "Thomas, your mouth isn't for talking. Be good, and come with me." Halfway through the party, James took me away. The next day, my body was covered in bruises. James had been like a madman last night, pinning me down and taking me again and again. "Thomas, do you know why our company opened a branch here?" James gently stroked my lips. "Because you once said you wanted to retire in this city. I founded this branch, it's just officially under the parent company. Thomas, from now on, let's live here together." James's words left me momentarily stunned. When did he start planning this? No wonder it was so easy for me to leave, and my adoptive parents were so quick to agree. It turned out James had intended to bring me here all along, and I had willingly jumped into the trap he had set for me. Thomas, you took my identity. Now you can repay me with yourself, James murmured, cupping my face and giving me a soft kiss. After all, you were the one who started this. James became the president of the branch office, and I became his executive assistant. During the day, I slaved away for him at the office. At night, I had to help him relieve his desires at home. My job was far too draining. I needed to get back at James. Hiding under his office desk, I secretly stripped off all my clothes. By the time James sat down and discovered me, it was too late. His manager was already knocking and entering the room to give a report. Brother, don't make a sound, or we'll be discovered. Actually, this life wasn't so bad. I'd gotten used to being on the bottom, and fighting with the system was exhausting. Maybe I'll just keep being the fake heir. After all, I'm actually quite fond of the real one.
Bonus chapter.
My name is James. It was only after I stabbed Cole to death that I learned this world was just a trashy BL novel. And I was the unlucky protagonist. What a joke. Even if I were to be with a man, I should be the one on top. Getting inexplicably targeted by a scumbag, inexplicably imprisoned by him, and then inexplicably falling in love with him. I'm not an idiot. So when I found the chance, I killed him. Then the world reset, taking me all the way back to my freshman year of high school. None of it had happened yet. But this time, there was a mysterious benefactor. Because I no longer had to worry about tuition and living expenses, my body wasn't as weak as it was in my previous life. The person didn't seem to be trying to hide their identity, either. It was easy to find out who it was. It was Thomas, the fake heir who had stolen my life, and the cannon fodder from that trashy novel. Honestly, I didn't feel much towards him. He had lived in luxury for 18 years, only to find out it was all a lie. It was normal for him to snap. But what was he planning? Did he already know my identity at this point? I decided to wait and see what he would do. I waited for 3 years until my adoptive mother brought me home. That's when I finally met Thomas. He looked happy, even excited. It was the look of a predator eyeing its prey. This Mr. Woods, who was a few days younger than me, saw me as prey. I was bored. I had no interest in him, because I knew that the next day, I was supposed to meet Cole. Since the ending was mutual destruction anyway, I planned to kill him tomorrow and then kill myself. Living a second time was too exhausting, but I never expected to run into Thomas at the bar. He was dressed so provocatively, attracting the attention of half the bar. I felt a surge of irritation. Was he dressed like that to try and seduce Cole ahead of schedule? If that was the case, I might as well let him witness Cole's death. To my surprise, Thomas was there to seduce me. His soft body pressed against mine, and a cloying scent emanated from him, making me lose my grip on my reason. That piece of trash Cole had still drugged me. While Thomas was clumsily trying to seduce me, he was also denouncing Cole. A thought occurred to me. Could it be that this Thomas wasn't the same Thomas from my past life? My suspicion was correct. Because of Thomas's appearance, I spared Cole for the time being. Since he was offering himself up, I went ahead and slept with Thomas. I didn't expect that after we slept together, he would refuse to acknowledge it and even say he wanted to remain brothers. What remain? We were never brothers to begin with. After sleeping with Thomas once, I discovered something strange. I could hear an odd voice coming from inside his body. The thing called system put my mind at ease. So Thomas really wasn't the Thomas from my past life. He was here to save me. But this little brother of mine actually wanted to top me. He turned into a puddle in bed. How was he going to top anyone? I was curious to see how Thomas planned to save me. And I watched him for 4 years. Until one time, after we were intimately tangled together, I discovered that I could also communicate with the system. It was terrified and seemed to be in despair. But it still reluctantly helped me by telling Thomas that he had to be with me. I never thought he would actually dare to run away, but it was almost laughable. He couldn't even run away properly, heading straight for my home base. Thomas, you are destined to be mine. As for Cole, he can go to hell for all I care. And that meddlesome system, I need to find a way to get it out of Thomas's body. The system said that as long as Thomas and I play out the scenario, its mission will be complete and it can leave. I glanced at Thomas, who was crouched naked under my desk, and let out a soft laugh. A little bondage game. I'm sure Thomas will love it.